You know, we are just so blessed. You know, we're only 245 years old. We're only 245 years old. You look at England and Europe and the other nations around the world, we are mere babies. We're just babies. Look what we've done in 245 years. In 245 years, we invented airplanes, the Wright brothers. We invented cars, Ford. We've invented Microsoft, you know, the computer programs. We invented computers for that matter. And look what we did. We had the Industrial Revolution. After we fought the Civil War, and after we went through all this stuff and got everything cleaned up, you know, we're a brand new nation. We had 13 colonies, and then it kind of grew and grew and grew. And then a lot of the farmers had the slaves. That was all over Europe. That was not an American thing. There has always been slavery around the world. Read your Bibles. The Jews were slaves in Egypt. Remember? Remember Moses set my people free? Throughout the centuries and thousands of years, there's been slavery on the earth. It's always happened. People who gain power and they enslave other people to do their work, build their buildings and stuff. It's a terrible thing, but it happens. The Jews, Bible's all about it in the Bible, thousands and thousands of years ago. And it continued on through Europe. The Romans had slaves. Everybody had slaves. You know, but America, oh my gosh, through this evil nation because they had slaves. We had a fraction of minutia and way after everybody else had slaves, and there's still slaves to this day across the earth. There's slaves in Africa. There's slaves all over the place that are still enslaved. Now we have a whole new slavery going on because now all the people coming across the border that had to pay the human traffickers to get them up here, and you couldn't get through unless you paid. It's like the toll, it's the tariff by the drug cartels. You know, a lot of people didn't have money up front. They said, well, you're going to work it off once you get across. Whether it's the sex trafficking or the drug running or the gang organization, whatever, indentured servitude is slavery. And the cartels own these people. It's bad. Nobody's talking about it. The media is not talking about it. But it's like, okay, we got rid of slavery in the United States. Now the Democrats are making slavery this bad thing, saying all the whites are bad, but it's actually the Democrats that made slavery in America. They were the founders of the Ku Klux Klan. They were the ones who fought against getting rid of slavery. They killed Abraham Lincoln. They completely voted against and fought and killed people to stop the blacks getting the right to vote in America. Well, all the Republicans were against slavery, making sure they were free, making sure they could vote, making sure they were citizens, always fighting for the minorities. The Democrats were always fighting for slavery, always fighting for don't let them vote, they're 3/5 of a person, don't let them. It's always been like that. But they turned it around and said, we need them on our side. We're going to make them vote for us. How did that happen? How did they ever get? They put in these programs that says, well, now, because you're not worthy, we're going to feed you and we're going to give you welfare and we're going to give you, and we're going to keep you down. But you're depending upon us for that check. Is that not slavery? You're still continuing to depend on them. Women, you can't have, we're going to make welfare laws that say that if you have your husband in the house, you're not going to get the same welfare check that as he was out of the house. So they institutionalized fatherlessness to the black community, and to the minority community, and to the poor community, poor whites too. Institutionalized fatherlessness by making welfare relegated policy matters on, and then they're paying, the more babies you have, the more check you're going to get. So that's how you make a living, is the more babies you get, the bigger check you get, the bigger your welfare state is. So you never get, and then they never let freedom of choice of schools, won't let the charter schools in the urban areas or the minority areas. Won't, locked down by that teachers union, locked down by that, and the schools are failing, the schools are awful. I remember, I'm doing this for a point, I remember after Katrina, I worked Katrina for the Department of Homeland Security as an auditor for the Inspector General. And I was down there on the ground for 4 years. And I was in Biloxi, we were right next to New Orleans. I was a fraud examiner and I was really good. I found a lot of fraud. I'm really good at finding fraud. They wanted me to go over to New Orleans. I said, you send me to New Orleans to find the fraud going in Katrina? You'll be sending me home in a body bag. There's no way I'm going over there. There was so much corruption and fraud going on in New Orleans. It was awful. But I had a lot of friends. I had a lot of friends in ministry there and people who were helping them recover and stuff. Well, what happened was when everybody got wiped out and the city got wiped out, the black community, who was really in the welfare state and had terrible schools and everything, they got scattered. And they went to, and they had always been for generations and generations and generations, been in New Orleans. Well, they ended up in Ohio, in Michigan, and all these states. And when they recovered and built back, they tried to get them to come back. They wouldn't come back. They said, we didn't know that there were school books that were not written in the 1970s. We didn't know that our children could get an education. We didn't know that we were actually respected and could go and get jobs. We're getting out of the welfare state. We're getting our kids in good school, getting them educated. My kid's going to go to college. My kid's not going to be another generation on welfare. They found a whole new world outside of that Democrat stronghold entitlement, welfare entitlement state. And it was incredible. It's like they were freed. It took Hurricane Katrina to come in and free the people. Think about that. Just think about that for a minute. Think about that. Well, now you got Chicago, and you've got New York, and you've got these Democrat cities, and it's all about how much federal money can we get in to put welfare in their pockets. The schools are terrible. Do you know that we're like 25th in the world in math and science? Our schools are absolutely failing. They are not teaching English, math, science, writing, strategic thinking, analytical thinking. They're not teaching that. They're pushing in about sex and homosexuality, homosexual sex, now critical race theory. Now they're desegregating the schools. Now they're segregating the schools again. Thank you, Joe Biden, who's always been a segregationist. Now they're segregating the schools. There's businesses, corporations that are separating their employees white and black based on this stupid critical race theory nonsense. It all goes down to the policy and the mindset and who your leaders are. Who your leaders are. We're the United States of America and everybody is free. Everybody's free. There is a congresswoman, there is a black congresswoman, Democrat, that made a tweet today that said, this is the 4th of July, but America is on stolen land and the blacks still are not free. Or, excuse me, you're a black woman congresswoman. If you're not free, how'd you get there? Seriously, how did you get there? How did you get there? I mean, it's absolutely insane.